My name is Cypher Morrison, and this is This Week in Car Audio. Tune in. This Week in Car Audio. Tune in. We'll be talking about bass, talking about chips, talking about rings. You ain't got them, zip your lip. You got a problem you haven't found, check your grounds. The show about to start. Tune in. This Week in Car Audio. Yeah. Tune in. This Week in Car Audio.
And welcome to This Week in Car Audio. My guest this week is Don Hebig, also known as DB Don. And down in the bottom, who isn't hanging out with us right now, he turned his video off, is Ray. How's it going, guys?
Good.
Can you see me now?
I can see you now.
There. I'm new to this stuff.
All right. So this week we're going to discuss the evolution of car audio competition and how it's kind of changed the evolution of car audio too. And I couldn't think of two better people. Maybe Wayne would have been nice to add, or Nathan Munson. Couldn't get a hold of Nathan. But you guys are very technical in this. Ray, you've been judging, I think, longer than I have even.
No, I think the same time, both of us.
So I started in 2001.
Yeah,
So,
same time.
oh, okay. But you've traveled internationally. So people that don't know Ray has traveled China, and what other countries have you been to judge car audio?
Canada for sure.
Eh?
Japan, Australia, Greece, Italy, and a whole bunch of European places. I don't even remember them all. Holland, Brazil, obviously, a couple of times. You know, just all over.
You don't remember Amsterdam very well, though.
Oh, I was definitely in Amsterdam. I just don't remember it.
And the other one we got up there on my right is Don Hebig, also known as DB Don. He used to do Inhuman. His sub was Inhuman, but it was Beyond Audio. He's helped develop some of the formats we use today, including Cyclone. Also, he was a competitor or had a strong hand in helping build many competitor vehicles. Hey,
Don't
Don.
forget the clamp glasses,
The what?
the clamps.
The clamps. So he was also a big deal. When we get to the clamp section, we'll actually start discussing about that.
Yep.
So I got on the phone this afternoon with Wayne Harris, and we kind of went over a quick timeline of some of the previous meters and such. Were you guys, either of you guys, competing in the 80s?
No, I was still like a baby in the 80s.
I started competing in about 89, 90, and when we went to shows, they had the acoustic mic. If you guys remember that one, that was
Yep.
the size of a head, and it actually registered up to 136, and that was it.
Yes.
But a lot of the people couldn't even reach that, so it was perfectly fine at the time.
Okay, so what Wayne gave me is in '84 was around the time he started competing. They used a mic called a C-Tech IV. I don't know anything about that microphone, but it was definitely a diaphragm microphone. Do you know anything about it, Ray?
No, I've never even heard of that. But I wonder if Google knows anything about that. We should ask that later.
Hey Google, what do you know? And then in about '85 they moved to the B&K 2231. So
I remember that.
So that's a mic we probably know a little bit about, because when car audio started, it was pretty much just Iasca, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So
That's the one that struck fear in competitors when they wanted that high fight score. That B&K was like a nemesis.
That was a hard mic back then.
Yep.
So what it was is you can go to any show anywhere, and they would use, say, an audio control or this C-Tech mic or whatever. But when you wanted to have a legal record, it had
It
to
was
be on the
B&K.
B&K.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes, and then back then, for the people that don't know, they didn't have frequency limits.
you are correct.
So
Yeah.
as people learned, because in my opinion and what I've learned throughout the years is generally the people that are in the high end of car audio competition, they're not dumb.
No,
So,
they know how to get the most.
yeah, I like being the dumbest guy in the room, and that's part of what drove me into the car audio, on the upper end of stuff, because there's some of these guys out there that would just talk circles around me about, at the time it was, they were talking about different order band passes. And to me, I literally made a speaker box, square, sealed, and I heard if you put a hole in it, it's louder. And so I just took a 2-inch drill bit and
Yeah.
put a hole in
Well,
my speaker
you
box.
know, that was, you guys are older than I am, I believe. I'm not sure how old Ray is. I think he's older than me as well. But um, back in the golden age when we were making that transition to larger woofers and ported boxes, there was this time when somebody would try something, they would get it right. Yeah, they
Put
would
a
have
hole.
an amazing score, and sometimes they hit it, sometimes they didn't, but a lot of times they would share that info with other people, and it would go back and forth, and that was, to me, it was almost like exploring new grounds. Like there was nothing to look back on to learn. You basically had to make your own path.
Yeah.
That's because the
So
path wasn't laid out. Nowadays there's almost like a recipe. Like
yeah,
if you look at any of the big builds and stuff like that, they're all very similar to each other because somebody's already proven the concept, and it's just a
yeah,
matter of refining and tweaking and build quality and et cetera, right? But like
yeah,
the back in the day, it was exactly what you said. It's pioneering the way.
Yep.
yeah,
So me personally, I started competing in '98, um, and I just dabbled in it, right? I just, oh hey, there's something going on here, um, and then in '99, actually it was '99 I started competing. Sorry, it was September-ish, uh, September-ish '99, and I went to a show, and it was one of the old Rockford Fosgate came and did their traveling show. And so I went to the show, and I had an AudioVox 300 watt with a single sealed 10 in the trunk. Oh no, no, I'm sorry. I had not a Wicked one. Yeah, this is the not Wicked one. It was the other one that by
that was the
Deckware.
modified one.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember I took that design and I changed it to, it was kind of a series tune sixth order, but a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
And it would spike one note even harder for us bass heads that were in the lanes.
Yep.
And it kind of took off because it was another one of those avenues where people were taking to they were really popular with the SUVs.
Right. And
Yeah,
it was proven, right? So somebody
yeah,
did a great thing, and so
yeah,
people fell along.
yeah,
And then through most of my interaction, I would say strongly at that time with Don
yeah,
Hebig when he was starting his Beyond Audio stuff, I was actually running his subwoofers, and I was building 10 boxes a week and
yeah.
testing it.
That's common.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
common.
And that actually through talking with Don and another guy named Kevin Smith he's in Florida. I don't know if you guys remember
Oh yeah,
Kevin Smith.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, Kevin Smith, another guy, very, very helpful. But I learned how to tune a horn.
Cool.
And so here I was tuning horns in a minivan. And remember, Don, I used to have my
yeah.
Subaru station wagon, right?
I
So
do. Yeah,
so I was the third guy in the world to hit a 150 in the street class. in the
Yeah.
it was Street 1-2 or something back then. I had an Arc Audio 1000 watt amp and two Inhuman 12s in the backside of a Subaru station wagon, and I did a 150.1 at a show, and you should have seen everybody's eyes all over my. What's going on in there? What's that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
I remember that.
like nobody used station wagons, right? That's right when
Yeah.
CRXs were starting, and everybody had a truck or CRX.
And I forget the guy's name, but he did briefly have a world record with one of those modified Wicked ones.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, I'll have to look up the name later, but he briefly had a record down in Florida, and it was pretty impressive.
That's cool. That's awesome.
So
So I'm gonna move through here, and then so they continue to use the B&K up, I believe, all the way to the point where we started getting the Term Lab sensors. So up until that time, B&K, it was the industry standard for years, right? So from 86, in 1986, Wayne. So Wayne asked me to put this in. He didn't really ask me, but I thought it was awesome information. So in 1986, Wayne built light trees and got them to interact with the Linear X meter.
yes,
Iasca changed over to the Linear X meter. Well, Wayne, that's where we got our light trees from, right? And those are really awesome. And so he wrote a program and built a hardware part that transferred the information going into the computer from the mic into the light trees.
yes.
Yeah. Dude.
I remember those ones up with him a couple times.
Yeah. So that started. He did that in '86, it says, and he said the standard mic at that time became the audio control from '86 to '92. That's pretty long standing for a diaphragm microphone, right?
Yeah.
Once we get
as long as you had spares, you were good.
So we'll get to that in a minute.
Those audio controls, they went out of calibration a lot, though.
So hey, we're gonna get to that in just a minute. Save that for a moment. I got a great time to talk about that one. So so we went to the audio controls in '92. Then in '95, the Linear X came out, which was actually a very awesome system. Super expensive. I remember I bought the RTA Junior, which was $1,500 or $1,600, and then you had to have a computer that was dedicated to it. But you can set up like a movie theater, and it was directional and stuff, So it was the Linear X was a really cool meter. Then in '97, Wayne came out with his Term Lab stick mic. For you guys that don't know, like I said, that's right around the time I started competing. A little bit later than that, those stick mics, they had issues, and we're gonna get to that next. So
they were just audio control mics that he was using.
Is that what it was?
Yes, they were.
Okay.
A little known fact: when you hit a 176.7 on those, they went X X X X.
And as somebody pointed out in the chat, and so you guys, back then when you set up a car, you had to put a small tripod with a microphone on a mic stand and try and get it to sit and stay in the perfect spot. You have sandbags build up around the base of it to hold it in place.
Yeah, duct tape down with the wooden floor.
Yep. So all those things, those were issues that judges had. But it was cool. And then we'll go to the 2001 World Finals. Ray.
Yeah, I was there.
I know you were there.
Yeah.
So could you tell me what some of the issues were at World Finals 2001, sir?
Well, basically, the mics would show that they were in calibration because you run the mic on the calibrator after every big run.
So
And
so
for
just
those
real quick.
for those of you that don't know what a calibrator
There
is,
you go. Thank you.
you see this case right here. This is a calibrator. So
Yep.
basically, what happens is this particular device it's certified for a particular SPL reading. So when you put the microphone in there and you run this machine, it should read exactly 163.7 dB on this particular calibrator. If your mic is not dialed into that, what you do is you adjust the software to match the SPL reading that particular microphone is giving you. However, sometimes when the microphones are really old and the diaphragm is a little bit loose, at the calibration point, it reads accurately. But when you go beyond the scope of those few SPL readings near the calibration point, they sometimes don't read accurately. Sometimes a little low, sometimes a little high. So, back in those days, very, very important to have lane choice, because once we started a particular category, the microphones would not be switched from left to right. That mic stays in that lane. So you'd always have teammates watching to see if there was a mic that was hotter than the other mics. So
Yeah, each team had a watcher.
Mhm.
yeah, you betcha.
And so what?
Scorekeeper,
You write it down.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
And so what were the potential differences in the two mics that you
Oh,
would have seen?
I've seen as high as like 10 dB difference.
Yes. I've
Yeah.
seen as much as 10 myself, and it was not uncommon to have at least 5.
Yeah. So I mean, on average, man, for the number of shows that there's probably like thousands and thousands of shows,
Mhm.
but most of the time they're within a couple of dB.
Yeah.
I'd venture to say 95% of the shows that I attended and went to, they were lane 1 and lane 2 within 2 dB of each other.
I would say
the
2 is common.
Yeah. Where you typically get higher SPL differentiation between lanes is when you get some of the extreme competitors,
Mhm.
and when you're hitting the diaphragm really hard, because you got to think about it, it's an analog. So I mean, it's a diaphragm that moves basically as it sees energy, right?
Mhm.
And the harder you hit it, the more it wants to move. So when you're at a show where everybody's doing like 150, 160 dB, not a big deal. You go to a show where you got a couple of guys that have some extreme vehicles that are doing it in the 100 to 70 dB range, and you're taking that diaphragm going whack, 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 and causing it to bottom out and do all kinds of weird stuff because it's quite small inside there. That's where you run into issues, and then it loosens up the suspension, and all of a sudden it's not reading it. But that's what we learned from, though. Without all of that stuff, we would have never had the sensors built. I mean, if those were rock solid, we would never need to change, right? So I mean, we're glad that we found those errors. We're glad we ran into those things, and those were those stepping stones that we absolutely needed, for all of us to evolve and get better at what we do.
Yes, I mimic that exactly. So I got a great wow. Don moved on me.
Oh, what?
You moved on me for some reason.
Oh, just somebody's calling me, and
Oh.
I had to do
So
what
I
I
had
was
I had a teammate at that 2001 World Finals. I'm sure you remember him, Ray. It was Chris Howard.
Okay.
That was my teammate, and he and Steve Azevedo both practiced on the same mic. We had the same audio control here in California, and we were setting up, our cars going to World Finals, because at that time, everybody in the entire world went to one location for World Finals, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
People would spend
Long
months.
drive.
Yeah, people spend months shipping their car from Europe over to the United States for World Finals. One location. That was it for the whole world. And we had full classes in extreme. And we had what?
Yeah.
3 extreme classes. We had 1 to 2, 3 to 4, 5 to 8, and 9
5 to 8,
plus.
9 plus. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was, so we had 8 people in each of those classes, not including all the regular DB drags, super street. But we only had like 2 street classes, I believe, and maybe 3 super streets.
Same number of super street as there was extreme.
That's
super
right.
Street 1. Yeah.
Yeah. So
was there ever over 100 extremes at one point? I think there was.
Yes.
Yep.
All of the earlier shows in like the late 90s, like 99, 2000, 2001, 2002, average attendance was like 250 plus vehicles, and at least 100 of them were extreme vehicles.
I believe 112. I'd have to count, but I think it was 112 and 99.
Yeah.
Well, you think each class that we just mentioned had 15 entries.
Yes.
Yeah.
They were full.
If you dared to sandbag, you were taking your placement in the bracket at risk.
Yeah, absolutely.
No doubt. Anyway, so my buddy Chris is there, and Scott Sanborn, which you guys know, or you know Scott at least, Ray. Do you know him, Don?
Yeah, I met him once, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Scott would be the petition guy, Ray. So for reference. So anyway, so Chris goes in the lanes, and Scott's job was to watch the lanes. Well, Scott got distracted for whatever reason, and Azevedo pulls in, and Chris is looking around. He can't find Scott, and goes, "Well, I guess I want the left lane," or what. I don't remember which lane he chose. And he goes in there. Well, we know this is for like 5th place, so this is, I believe, first round. And we know, because we're playing on the same mic for practice, we know we got Azevedo by 6, maybe even 7 dB. We go in the lane, and he pops off a 171 in Super Street 1 to 2. And we're like, no, there's no way in hell. And so we talked to Wayne, whatever. Well, we got to go with whatever the mics say, blah, blah, blah. Mike, he recalibrated the mics. He did it again. He hit a 170 point something. So he found a frequency or something that just peaked that mic. But the third time he did it, he couldn't duplicate that ever again. And yeah, so that's how important Mike lane choice was. He did a 171, and Chris still did a 167 point something in the low lane. So he definitely, in our estimation, he was the loudest guy at World Finals that year for Super Street 1 to 2. He was loud. And but Azevedo, that's why lane choice actually was up in the rules up until I think it was last year we took it out.
2 years ago.
2 years ago, we took out lane choice.
Yeah. It's still there. It just says lane choice goes to whoever gets there first.
Correct. And before it said went to the highest seed.
Yeah.
Yep.
The sensors are within, 0.1, 0.05.
Mm-hmm. And so that's where I'm at now. So because of the issue that was created at World Finals, and believe me, it was an issue. I'm sure Ray, that's probably what drove you off social media, Ray.
I've never gotten onto social media.
Okay.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah. Oh man, it clogged up the Term Pro forums back then. Like,
oh yeah.
Holy crap. That was the only thing talked about. But Wayne sat back and goes, "There's got to be a better way." And he came up in 2002. We got the first sensor, and it was analog. So I'll skip ahead. He's got serial numbers for all of those. He sold over 10,000 units of the analog first sensors that we use. I still have mine, and they're the ones that have the K factor on them, right?
You are correct. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got that one too.
Okay. One of you guys want to explain how that K factor and that works with those mics?
Go ahead, Don.
You cut out there.
Oh, Dom, would you like to explain how the K factor works and on those mics?
The K factor, well, a lot of the earlier ones, I think they came in at 177.8.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
For the setting on them or something like that.
Yep.
And I'm not sure, how did they calibrate those ones? I think.
Okay, so
I've never really played with them.
Okay, so because they were an analog device, Wayne had them basically, he calibrated every one to what the K factor should be set for before they left his office. So everyone had a sticker on it when it shipped out, and it would tell you what the calibration point was, and that's what you had to set the K factor to, because it was doing it all analog. It has to take
that's
that
right.
information and it has to convert it to something digital that it can, use as a reference point for what number should be, allocated for that amount of energy that's coming from the analog mic. So every one of them, all had different within a few tenths of it, as far as I can remember anyways. I think like 177.8 is the most common one.
Yep.
There were a few that were below and above that and stuff like that, but you just said it and away you go, right? So that's what it was.
I have the 178.0. I have 178.1, and then a couple of the 77.8s.
I never messed with mine because it was spot on with most other meters, so I didn't touch it.
Yeah. So, and that was something you changed within the Turn Pro program.
Inside the software, correct?
Yes. Which, once again, that's a game changer because for you guys that don't know, when they had the stick mics like the Linear X, the one that we called a suitcase, right? They would literally hang it over their shoulder and they walk around and they can adjust the K factor right there on the little suitcase. And people were, I'm just saying that the results were questionable often.
Yeah, we've been to a few shows where we would be at least 11 to 12 dB above the next guy, and we would only be about 2 decibels ahead or 1 decibel ahead. We knew what was going on, but we just didn't care. We just,
Yeah. What'd you
this
find?
Is what he's talking about. This is the the old ones where you can adjust the dial right while they were doing the competition. So sometimes, if they liked you, they could just turn the gain up, and if they didn't like you, they just turn it down, and then you wonder why you lost.
Yeah.
Ray, that's why you had to be louder than the next
guy. So hey, but you know what? That was the standard, right, for the time.
Yeah, for sure.
And Wayne helped that by coming up with the sensor. Then let's see, in 2003 he introduced the .net, which I looked for mine, and mine's actually in my trailer, so I couldn't get to it. That's the one that was the ribbon cable that went to a PCMCI connection.
Yeah, that's correct too.
Yeah, so it's a PCMCI, which was looked like a credit card slot right in the computer. It came with the thing that connects to the motherboard. You connect that to your motherboard. You put the PCS, put the long word letters into the slot, and it translated that once again analog. But the advantage was now 4 mics at a time, which was awesome because we would do death matches and whatnot with those 4 mics, right? Still do them sometimes at my shows. I got some other things coming up, so you just run out of time at a show,
Absolutely.
So from there, he did the .net. Oh, also the .net. So he won a prestigious award. Wayne is really proud of this. It's not an easy award to win. He won the 2003 with the .net and sensors, the CES Innovation Award. So they don't give out a bunch of those at CES, and so he was recognized, right?
I think that probably for me is one of the most helpful innovations that I've seen in competition is that sensor, because of the consistency. When you're testing and you change one thing, and you may very well make gain, but on the old stick mic, if it was too hard of a hit on the stick, you could cause that thing to go out of calibration, and then your next test is out. So the sensor allowed us to take even further detailed, minute steps to gain those 0.1s, 0.1, 0.1, and eventually the 0.1 was 1 dB, then it was 2 dB, and it allowed us to further refine the enclosures.
Because they were accurate, right?
Yes, they were accurate. They were
consistent.
And consistent. That's a better word for it. They were really consistent.
consistent, and they're tough. You can't break them.
Right. So, what was the difference that you guys saw between the stick mics to when he came up with the sensors?
I know on mine, when I first got the sensors, I still had the audio control set up, and I was seeing probably 6 decibel difference, 6 to 7 decibel difference.
Mm-hmm.
But with the 3 note average of the sensor, if I just took the peak note of those 3 notes, I was probably within a couple dB of what the audio control was reading. So a lot, I think a lot of that was that average too.
Okay. So, what did you see, Ray, as far as the differences?
Yeah, I mean, typically about 5 dB.
Okay.
So I mean, like Don said, I mean, part of it is the averaging, the way that the score was being measured, had to do with it. Part of it was, I think it was more real life. A lot of the higher SPL numbers, when you have a stick mic, because of the diaphragm inconsistency, could have spiked it and had those higher numbers just because of that, right?
Yep. I would agree. Um, then, so then we go to 2015. That's when Wayne comes up with the new Magnum. Uh, we switched from analog to digital. He got 16 times better resolution on what the computer's actually seeing. Can you speak to that one, Ray?
Sure. So what that means when we say we went digital is that, so previously the old analog mic would read the information, send the information to the box, translate the information, get it to the computer. So now there's an actual microprocessor basically inside the actual mic itself. It actually does all of the calculations right on the actual sensor itself before it sends it out. So I'm not sure if you guys know this, but all of the sensors that were ever shipped that are all digital actually all have a Bluetooth chip built into them. None of them are active, but there's one in there.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Just food for thought.
I actually opened up when I just got this new Magnum. I opened up my Bluetooth and it says TermLab on it, and I'm like, what the hell?
Well, the intent was the intent was in the future is to be able to run it Bluetooth.
Yeah,
but it's difficult on the security of a Bluetooth, especially for DB Drag. I'm not speaking against any other organizations, but DB Drag really prides itself on being one of the few organizations that there's zero subjective information. Right? Everything is this is what the computer says. This is what you got. There's nothing about it. It's 100%. It has nothing to do with the judge. So if the judge doesn't like you, he can't change your score. And
it's the gold standard of measurement. Everybody, when they're measured on that, they know, it's legit score, depending on the organization. But the score is, the equipment is not going to lie to you or malfunction.
Yeah, and it's good enough technology that all sanctioning bodies have that as their official meter.
Absolutely. That's
for sure.
Good.
All right. So that's pretty much the evolution of the microphones and how they went. I did the original USBs and the .nets. Did those read 3 frequencies also? I don't remember if those did or not.
No, single frequency.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
2 were singles, yeah.
Yeah, so then when he switched to the Magnum, that's when it switched. So it's your highest 3 frequencies. So whatever the top frequency is, plus the one on either side of it now is what it reads. So that's the big thing. And this is also pretty much why it's so consistent. Is because it's easier to trick 1 note versus 3. So that's how we got it. So let's go back mid 90s. Some of the car audio equipment that we were using back then. You know of any of it, Ray?
Mid 90s, like, let me think. What was really popular in the mid? Well, Rockford was always really popular.
Dude, right here.
Mid 90s. That was probably one of the largest brand names out there.
Punch 150.
they had their mobile clinics. They're rolling around town. They're the ones that actually, at the time of DB drag racing when it started in the late 90s, the distributors up in Canada, Corbon Trading was partnered up with them, and they are the ones that did all the DB drag racing shows across Canada. So yeah, that's the biggest one. Kenwood was really big back in the day. Pioneer was really big back in the day. I mean, these companies are all still around, obviously,
Yes.
but I think a lot of their focus has shifted away from the lanes, I guess.
Yeah. So
That makes sense.
what about you, Don? What do you?
I just want to add one more thing to the
Okay.
new Magnum here, in regards to the Magnum. With a lot of the features that it brought out, I think one of the ones that I've seen popping up on Facebook, a lot of questions, probably half a dozen times, is how to use all the features of it and what the hell is power factor. People don't know what that is.
Okay. Well, do you want to help them with it?
Power factor is it's basically a number that the Magnum's pulling from the score and the power applied, basically telling you how efficient your system is at that note. So, if you have the right tuning and the right box and everything's as maximum efficiency as you can possibly get, you're going to get closer to that 1.0.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I haven't seen anyone hit 1.0, but I mean, when you're tuning your system, and you could probably make a whole show just out of that one spec of the Magnum. But basically what you're looking for with that new Magnum is when you're tuning, you may be louder at one note, but your efficiency is better on another one. So if you retuned and moved over to that note, you're going to be better overall for it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So back in that day, hold on, wait. Back in the day, we used to have to do quarter wave theory to kind of. So that's where we're going with this stuff. So so the equipment. So what equipment did you from the 80s ish?
With quarter wave theory, without that cap, frequency cap, it's much easier to tune a box, get it set up. Using that older theory with the higher notes, you're able to get into the ballpark of where you needed to be. And then all you needed to do is retest, calibrate, retest, calibrate, and keep doing that, right?
Yeah.
So, and a lot of times, and I actually have a speaker here, when a little bit before my time, but a lot of the early competitors, this is what they had.
Pro
right
audio.
Here. They started off using Pro Audio, and this stuff is 100 dB at 1 watt.
Yeah.
Like, extremely sensitive. And then car audio companies started popping up, Rockford, Orion, and then you got guys like Pyle coming out and doing colorful car audio subs.
Remember Redline?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yes. So
GNR Redline or GNS Redline.
GNS Redline, yeah.
Yep.
So you're getting into a lower sensitive power handling woofer, and then you get into things like, I'll just flip. Can I flip you around here?
Sure.
Yeah.
And then you start getting into things like this, where you have a very strong magnetic gap. You have a very heavy cone. And this thing here, if you're measuring with 10 watts, this one's going to be louder than that one. But the minute you go above 10 watts or 15 watts, this one takes over, and it can go on and on and on. So, and with the advancements of power as well, I mean, you can get anywhere from 5,000 watt to 4,000 watt with $400 American dollars.
Yep. So that's where I was going at with this. So back in the mid 80s, 88, man, that's kind of mid 80s. I bought my first real amplifier. I bought a Punch 150 and a Punch 75 to run my mids and highs, right?
Ooh, hang on, I think I might have one of those.
So my Punch 150 though cost me $750. So you were looking at 7 to 1 almost, a little over, $60 to 1 amp, right? Or to
No,
1 watt.
it's only a Pons 300.
Oh, see, mine was way older than that.
Yeah, this is not that old.
So, but yeah, so the Punch 150, and then in '90, Hyphonics. I got introduced to Hyphonics stuff, and they
Yeah.
had a Zeus amp, right? Dude, this thing was as big as half of the back of the seat of this B2000, is it Mazda B2000 truck. The guy had a full camper shell walk through in it, and he had 8 M&M Godfather 15s
Oh yes.
running off of 4 Zeus amps. And I walked into the store. He was playing Madonna Like a Prayer. That first note hit. I went, bam! Dude, I was hooked. I wanted some of that, right? And that's why. And so I got me. So I'm 17-ish years old at the time. So
Yeah.
I had me a 77 Trans Am. I took the back seats out. I put 212 sealed on the bottom where the seat cushions were, and then on top of that, I put this big old like 5 cubic foot box with polyfill in it with 215s because I needed the 12s for the mid bass and the 15s for the low lows.
Yeah.
That was before I learned about that you can create whatever frequencies. Now they're going to be more efficient with a 15 than a 12 for super low, but you can create the frequencies with either one. And I didn't know, and that's where I told you. So I had these 2 sealed boxes, and I heard from some guy that if you put a hole in the box, it's going to be louder. So I took a 2.5-inch hole saw and put some speed holes in that thing.
And how big was the box?
The top box was like 5.5 cubic feet, and the 12 boxes were each like 1.3. This is just from memory. I didn't actually.
A 2-inch hole in that big a box. You're tuning it at like 65.
Yeah, and it was 3/4 inch deep, right?
Yeah.
So that's we all learned stuff, right?
Yeah.
But
it would have got a little bit louder though.
Yes. So at that point, 1,000 watts was a big amp, right? That was like,
yeah.
Oh,
that's what you're buying.
Oh yeah, for sure. Back in the day, like you got to think. I mean, the same physical size of a 1,000 watt amp back in the day is like the footprint of a 5,000 watt amplifier nowadays,
Yep.
and maybe even bigger now. Like, and like Don was saying before, like it was like $7 a watt, and then it was like $1 a watt, and on average for a really good Korean board nowadays, it's on the American side like 30 cents a watt. For a good American, for a like a full bridge or a Brazilian type board, you're talking 10 or 15 cents a watt nowadays.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So that was the 1,000, and I competed in '98. 2000, I crashed my car. That's when I met Don, and I was building boxes like crazy because I couldn't do anything. I was on crutches. I couldn't walk.
Yeah, I remember you sending pictures, and you're trying to run a skill saw with a crutch under your arm.
Yeah. Hey, dude, I'm carpenter by trade, right?
You
did it.
I did it. And then so at that time, the 1,000 watt was pretty big. And then at some point in 2001 ish, I started my own company, Sonic FX, with the help of Don and a couple other people. Definitely, they were very instrumental and helpful to me. But when I started my own company, we started introducing. I was with Powerbase. I did a lot of stuff with Powerbase because of what was his name? Tom Osborne. No, Tom. Remember, he got the patent on ports, or he tried to file a patent for ports on subwoofer boxes.
Yeah, you're ringing a bell, but I can't get the last name.
Yeah. So anyway, so Tom, he lives in Missouri now. I actually went to high school with the guy, and met him again through DB Drag, and so he was worked for Powerbase as an engineer for them on their amplifiers. So I was buying the 1200 watt boards, and I was sending to him, and we were talking, and we were trying to adjust them and get them. We got them up to like 1500 watts, which, like I said, in 2001 was a good amp, 1500 watts. Um, but then I saw a big jump to 2000 watts. You guys remember what year about that was?
2000-watt amplifiers came out, I think, in 2002 or 2003.
Yeah.
Does
Because Crossfire
Zapco,
made their
yeah,
2000-watt amplifier.
Hmm.
There was a lot of companies that were making 2000-watt amplifiers at the time. I think you're right. Zapco was making their C2K something or other, and there are so many.
9.0.
Yeah, that was two amplifiers strapped together. But let's not
Yeah.
talk about that.
So that's where I was going to go. So when we only had 1000 watt amplifier,
right there.
9.0,
That's the
there
one.
it is. Um, yeah, and then they tried saying, well, it's only one amplifier. Look at the end cap; it's bolted together. But I do remember Scott Sanborn and I and a couple other guys were working on bridging modules, and we came up with a bridging module thing, and we actually took it to Zabco at the time, and Robert Zeff um, made fun of us, right? Because we are nowhere near the level of Robert Zeff. If you guys know Robert Zeff from Zabco,
I
the guy's,
I never met him. No.
the guy's
No.
mental level for engineering is well above mine. But he pretty much laughed at what we had, but he goes, "Hey, the concept's here." And that's when he started building it, and he put it in those amps. And then Crossfire came out with a bridging module, right, where you could put a couple of their what was it, the BMF 1000s together.
Yep.
Scotty Johnson, I believe it was, did he have the white Crossfire van at World Finals?
I
There was a
believe
Crossfire.
Was it
No,
Scotty?
I think no, it was Chris. Wasn't it Chris?
Okay. Anyway, I remember. So he did the death match, and it was the
Oh,
Steve Cook.
2005 World Finals.
It was Steve Cook.
that's
Steve Cook.
Yeah.
There you go. So
White van.
yes. So
Yeah.
I'm sitting at the back. My duties. That was my very first World Finals, 2005, and my duty was fire extinguisher guy. And so we're doing world. Hey. So we're doing the death match, and I go there, and he's got his back open, right, and just sparks, caps just popping everywhere, sparks shooting out the side of his amplifiers, and that's we weren't kind then. We started calling them catch fires. I mean, it's a solid brand, don't get me wrong, but just because of that instance, we were calling them catch fires. And I pulled up that thing, and I got ready to shoot the fire extinguisher, and he goes, "If you do that, I will beat your ass.
He wasn't
Let it
running
burn."
BMF, were they?
Huh?
Were they BMFs?
They were the white ones.
VR.
Ray would know. Were they BMFs?
They were the white
No,
ones.
they're VR.
They were VRs. They were the
Okay.
1000s.
Okay.
And he had like 20 of them in there or something. And
Yeah, that was the newer versions. The older ones were better.
oh yeah, and he says you let this car burn to the ground. I was like, all right, that's somebody dedicated right there.
What I want to see, and I know they do this in pro audio, I want to see amps that I can parallel, stack.
I feel it's very doable.
I seen it for the first time in 2004.
Stacking amps.
Not physically
Yes.
stack. I mean electronically. All the negatives
Yes.
together, all the positives.
Yeah.
Correct. So in 2004, and in Europe, I don't even remember the company. It was the Finnish guys. They were able to strap 8 amplifiers into one channel. So 4 of them would be the negative, and 4 of them would be the positive.
Yes.
I cannot remember the brand name. Right
It wasn't
off the top of my
Cactus
head.
Sounds.
No, it was like SPL Dynamics or something like that.
Okay. The ones that came up with Blue Magic, SPL Blue or whatever it was.
I have no
Oh,
idea.
the
It
DB
was
Blue.
DB Blue.
it was the Finnish guys.
Okay.
That's what they had in their vehicle.
Okay. So yeah, so then we started bridging amplifiers, and then that was also around the same time as the coils changed.
Yeah, yeah.
Want to speak to those, Don?
The quad coils.
Yeah.
Well, it was mainly it was mainly in part with the amps weren't quite big enough, so the woofer technology, the ability to build them really strong, and not having enough power to get there. So you would strap 2 amps per coil. You'd have 8 amps on one speaker,
Mm-hmm.
and it still wouldn't be enough power for a burp. So,
Yep.
you know, you had dual coils, but then they started going, well, we have another spot on the basket. Let's just throw 2 more coils on it. So that's how that went. And then when the conductor limit came in,
Mm-hmm.
people would just opt out and get the dual coil. So that kind of left the quads kind of by the wayside. They still do hold merit in certain situations, but when you're limited to conductors and where a dual coil will get by, and with the power clamped classes, you can kind of get away from that.
Actually, as I understand it right now, currently most high output coils are actually quad coils. They're just internally series or internally paralleled. So just as an
That's correct.
example, we're a DC audio dealer, and one of the coils that I had is an 8-layer coil, and it's actually a quad coil, and they internally series or parallel them. Obviously, one of the joints internally failed, and I'm like, why is it reading 8 ohms? I ordered like a 2 ohm, and that's why, is because the quad coil is how it's designed and engineered, and then they internally they series or parallel it. So
Yeah. Well, it's tough to get that much wire in a gap and get the
Oh
ohm
yeah.
load that you want. So
correct.
with the
Correct.
multi layers and doing 4
So you can,
coils, you can fill
you
the
can
gap
kind of
better.
you can kind of
Yeah.
see that there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
This is a DC coil. I believe it's one you shipped me actually. Uh, it's actually a bifilar wire.
Yeah.
Which
Which
explain that to people so they understand.
Well, basically what it is the wire comes down in a pair, right? It goes with down, does the wraps, goes down, comes back up in the opposite direction of the original, and then so when you have the electrons flowing, that way, and the return coming this way, that it's going to help with the field that's generating. It's going to be a lot less with the bifilar wire versus just winding one down and one back up. So, but you could easily turn this into a quad just by pulling it out sooner. Instead of coming out here, you just come out halfway on, at 90 degrees on the other side of the coil.
There
So.
you Yeah. And then, so some of the other things that were happening there. So we had the quad coils. A big person for that was Mike Anke, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the mouse, that was a game changer when it first came out. And then at that same time, though, who was it? It was the one in Florida, Mats, Mats. Holy
Mats,
crap!
yeah.
Came out with that 3,000 watt amp that was, I mean, you could fit it inside your door. Dude, that was awesome.
I think you're talking about those
DHC.
D-amps.
Yes.
Yeah, Ray's got some one of them in his shelf there in the back.
You're talking about the Earthquake PhD3?
No, the M-Mats.
Oh, I also have one of those, but mine's only the 1200 watt version.
Oh, okay. But they made a 3,000 watt version that
Yes,
was
they did.
tiny. It was perfect for like
Yes.
motorcycle installs, and I mean that you would need 3,000 on a motorcycle,
Yeah.
Nowadays, 3000 on a motorcycle isn't even big. I seen a motorbike that had 24,000 watts on it.
Woo! That's awesome. Yeah. So now amps are getting smaller, power's getting bigger, right? Then we started. That's when we were really, I think, going into changing. We went from Kapton formers to aluminum formers, and then we were playing with different wires like flat wound versus copper round. Some of those things, right, Don?
Oh
Yeah, so
yes.
I mean, you mentioned round to flat.
Yep.
It was a power or an energy density thing. So if you think of it, when you have a round wire by a round wire with another round wire, there's always a microscopic gap in between there.
Mhm.
When you have them flat, each one can be stacked perfectly on top of each other, and you have no empty space. You got a better feel that.
And you also have a better thermal transfer rate to the outside of the coil for cooling.
Correct, because you have no insulators in between. Because each gap that's
Yep.
in between these round ones, that's a microscopic amount of air or resin or whatever it is that prevents
Yep.
the heat from being transferred. So when you have them flat and they're stacked directly on top of each other with only the rosin in between, it helps to conduct the heat out.
Which is why we went to aluminum formers versus Kapton formers,
Yes,
right? And then
better heat dissipation.
Yeah, heat dissipation, and that's where I know Don had a big deal with that. I played with it quite a bit, quite a few manufacturers where we were actually putting holes in the former to
Yeah.
try and create surface area to dissipate the heat. We tried pole venting of different ways to try and create, to try and dissipate heat. I
Yep.
I know Don and myself both
There's
were playing with in 2002, 2003. We were playing a lot with the Neo stuff, but holy good lord, was it expensive then?
oh yeah.
Yeah,
Remember?
well, China made everything less expensive.
It did. So yeah, I mean, I think I the first Neo motor I bought me at that time I was paying, I believe, around $25 for a double stacked 210 magnet. Okay, so 210 ounces double stacked. So for my magnetic material, I think it was like $25. My first Neo magnet that I got, which was nothing, it was a couple of rods. I believe they charged me around $95. So, and now we have Neo magnets that are, I mean, they have the roll of nickels all the way around the thing, right? And so
Yep.
I don't know what the manufacturing cost is nowadays, but man, at that cost, it was just too prohibitive for
So
us to continue with it.
so this is an old juggernaut pole right here,
Oh yeah.
and you can kind of see how they were testing with that.
Mhm.
And this is the one that DD made for them when they first came out.
Yep. Oh, so speaking of DD, just so people that don't know, Digital Designs, that's what DD is. They came out around the same time, 2003 ish. And it was a competitor, I believe, that started his own subwoofer company. And and to be honest with you, the Sonic FX subwoofers I made, if I could not put my subwoofer in my box in my vehicle and be louder than the DD, I threw that design away and came up with another one because at the time DD dominated the high end of stereo of the speakers.
This is how far the Neo has gotten. This is Ray's Neo,
Okay.
but
So
this is
so let us know what size it is too, so that because like I said,
this is
people are listening online
it's
versus seeing.
1 inch diameter
Mhm.
by 1 inch tall, round,
Mhm.
with a 1/4 inch hole in the middle
Mhm.
for mounting, on each pillar, and it's an N48 UH. So it'll take over 180 degrees. But this one Neo has more force, lifting power per se, and quite frankly, concentration of flux than this.
Which is what size is that?
This is an 8-inch triple stack. I believe it's Y35,
So
but it
it's a triple
this,
stack magnet that's 8 inches in diameter, 1 inch thick.
yes, each of them is 3/4 inch thick.
Okay.
But this is stronger than this.
So that's the difference in Neo versus
Exactly.
rare earth metals, right? The regular.
Where
Yeah, they're very small and energy dense, as I like to call them.
Yes.
where the only advantage, if I was to compare this one to this one, the only advantage this would have over this one is it would have more resistance to field collapse with power applied to the voice coil. And that's why you use multiple of these versus one of these, because this one here has a really nice resistance and lower rise on your coil.
Mm-hmm.
But when you put lots of these, you're going to have a much higher limit with the trade-off of a little bit more rise.
So, and another issue we had initially with the Neo is we needed that extra material to dissipate the heat from the coils also. And I remember that was a big problem. So
Yeah.
we're paying more for the Neo, and it didn't dissipate the heat very well off of the coils. So those two made them prohibitive at the time, but since the prices have come down, people got to test it, and that's where they came up with stacking multiple ones around it. So now you can get through cross ventilation and cool the coils down.
This back, I mean, they didn't have this back in 98, 99, but the highest version of Neo grade that you could buy, it was roughly about $30 for this size.
Yeah.
30. You can get this size in an N52 for between $5 and $6.
Yeah.
So big difference.
Huge difference.
Yeah.
So back also, I think it was around 2006, 2007. I Rockford Fosgate came out with their 25,000 watt amp. You remember that? It was a Warlord or something like that.
I don't remember the name of it, but it was massive.
Yeah, it was
like
a big
this.
one.
Yep, it filled up an
Short-lived.
entire showcase thing, right, at CES.
You only had one of those in a vehicle.
And
I think at CES they had one hooked up to like 50 subwoofers or something like that. Crazy. It was like a lot of woofers off of one amp. They're like, see how much power it has.
Yeah, but realistically, they were like the first ones to do it with a amplifier. Obviously, Harrison Labs, with their one amp that they had that would do 50,000 watts, but it was essentially just a converter.
That was just a switcher, positive, negative.
Yeah.
It was just a bunch of big high current relays.
Yes. But it did produce 50,000 watts or whatever it was. It was some insane number. Also, back in the early 2000s, we had the cheater amps, right?
Oh yes.
Was it Orion?
Yeah, the 5 watt.
The HCCA.
Like
Yep. The half ohm or half watt.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's because back in the day, like we talk about the late 80s and early 90s, and Slam Jam was really popular then. Ayahuasca was really popular then. Their categories were based on manufacturers, power output of the amplifier. So, for example, the Orion HCCA 225 and the MTX 225 HO and the Crossfire something or other 215, they were like 15 watts by 2, 25 watts by 2.
Yeah.
Watts by 2. But these are all like at 8 ohms,
half ohm,
et cetera. And then they would like load them down, and all of a sudden it's like an 800 watt amplifier, right?
Yeah, at quarter ohm.
Yeah.
Not that we ever suggest people doing quarter ohm.
But I mean, you just got to think though. The entire industry basically builds all of their equipment based on what other regulatory bodies suggest. So, Ayahuasca had 0 to 50 watts, so they made 50 watt cheater amplifiers. DB Drag Racing makes, you can only have 4 conductors, so they combined their quad coils and made them into dual voice coil drivers. But on the coil side, so there's only 4 conductors on the outside. You need, so on and so forth, right? Like so much of the industry that we have right now has been steered just by competition.
Mhm.
Back in the 90s when it started, sealed boxes were very popular. Like even look at the early 2000s. The loudest guys on the face of the earth was Wolfgang and the Team BAS guys from Germany, 177.7 done with sealed boxes.
Yep.
16 woofers, 10-inch woofers, all sealed, each one individually tuned to hit the microphone at the exact same time, so they had a coupling effect. Nowadays, guys are getting that loud with one or two woofers. So technology as it progressed was basically to maintain superiority in the lanes and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
we went from regular sealed boxes to ported boxes that prefabricated enclosures in the 90s only came with round ports.
Yep.
Everybody proved that these slot ports can be really big and arrow ports can be big. Then years afterwards, we see all these prefabricated enclosures with round ports that are flared, so they're mimicking what's happening in the lanes, and they're doing big slot ports and stuff like that, and et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I think most recently I've seen Kicker makes a big 412 box that you can buy that's got this rounded slot port.
Yep. Yep.
So manufacturers are realizing that this is how we want to maintain engagement with our clients out there. We can skip the whole fabrication step if we can sell it to them as a buy it and the solution's already there. You just put it in your vehicle and away you go. So
They're just taking what they see working for their customers in the lanes, the curved boxes,
Mhm.
the air spaces. They're saying, okay, I don't know, maybe a Tahoe is a really popular vehicle that fits in. They're going to design it for that.
Mhm.
mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So
I mean, stereo competition and the audio industry is very similar to like drag racing or NASCAR is to the auto industry. They get to test these high end things that when they build it, they'll never make it to market, but it's going to be super. And then they find out it's efficient or it does this. And then all of a sudden, now they can fit it into the everyday market. I mean, look at what's in the cars nowadays versus what were in the car 15 years ago. A lot of the stereo systems that come in these cars, they even have a little bump in them. A single 8 in a box in the back in a Q Logic type box, and that's good enough for some soccer moms.
yeah, and that a lot of that competition experimentation, it has a trickle down effect to the
Mhm.
mainstream items. The top of the line uh, product, you might use some of those aspects that don't cost too much into the low end ones.
Mhm.
So
Agreed.
Yep. I mean, the one of the big things that I saw come from the car audio too is the head units, right? So these guys were manufacturing head units that could produce the full 8 volts. Pioneer did a great job with that, and I believe that had to do with Scott Owens saying, "Hey, I need more voltage for these. I'm running 22 or 24 amps, whatever he was running, and he's like, "Hey, I
yeah,
need voltage for these." And then along came line drivers and whatnot, and then
yeah,
Pioneer was like, "Hey, we don't want somebody buying a piece of equipment we don't sell. So let's put out 8, 12 volts, whatever it is, on their out their subwoofer outputs." So all of that stuff has been, like I said, I think car audio competition is driving the car audio market, and we haven't even got into the countless people that have started car audio companies because they were competitors. I
oh
mean,
yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
two of them. So personal friends of mine. So two of the people that I can call right off the top: Incriminator Audio, Nick Wright, competitor, supporter, started a car audio brand. Now he's very successful on the East Coast, and I'm sure he ships all over the place. DC Audio out of Reno
yeah,
ships
yeah,
all over the world. I know for a fact because we're friends, whatever. And so it created a source of income that started out as a hobby for him, and he loved it. Then he owned a stereo shop, and then he was like, "Man, I need to make these woofers louder. I need to get louder." And he started reconing. Then next thing you know, he starts up DC Audio. Now he has a full
yeah.
line. He's got subs, he's got mids and highs, he's got amps, he's got sound deadener. I think yesterday, I think I saw him post like a thumb drive or something with the DC logo on it, or so.
Voltmeters.
Oh, that's
for
what
you
it's
and
voltmeters. So, yeah, so they, I can't express how much I enjoy the car audio. I've been doing it 21 years. Ray, how long you been doing it?
same amount of time.
Yeah, and Don, how long have you been doing it?
Competing,
Yeah.
probably since '92.
Okay. So, I mean, but like I said, so I mean, the friends I've made in this, Ray comes, and when he goes to one of my shows, we catch up. Like, I mean, it takes us minutes to catch up, right? We talk about his kids, his like 17 kids he has, and he has another one on the way every time I talk to him. So, and Don, me and Don, we talked a lot back in the day. We still talk, and our talks are typically technical stuff. But that's the relationship we have. But Don's a great guy. He's got his family thing going on. I know where he know what he does for a living. No, Ray owns FX Audio up in Canada. I mean, him and Don are both wearing the shirts from the shop, right?
Yeah.
We have FX Audio everything, FX Audio.
But FX Audio is the biggest supporter for DB Dragon mid Canada, right? You guys are mid Canada?
Western Canada.
Oh, you're Western Canada. So, which is 12, 13 hours driving to the ocean.
Oh, yeah, you betcha. So if I was to head directly west and keep driving, it'd be like 13 hours till I see in the ocean.
Yeah. So that's what they
I'm
call
in the
west.
middle of nowhere.
Don's in the middle of nowhere. So, but anyway, these guys, we have, I think we have real good camaraderie. Ray and I collaborate quite a bit with DB Drag Rules. I send him pictures, ask his opinion. He'll send me information, ask my opinion. We do it with all the judges. Don helped come up with the clamp classes. Don's like, hey, I'm testing all these different clamps, and we came up with an X Tech.
Yeah.
It was the one Don came up with.
Actually, Ray actually ordered those for me, so he was a part of it as well.
See, there you go. I know Ray and Don have been part of developing the DB Drag classes for years and years and years. I've been involved with the DB Drag on the looking into rules since I believe it was like 7 pages long when I first got in. And now I think we're up to 24 or 23 pages.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah, and and then these guys come up with the class. Don was instrumental in Cyclone, and I do more shows than just about anybody. I believe more than anybody in the world on an annual basis.
I do have one question.
Sure.
Who was the one who brought in the demo class? Whose idea was that?
That I couldn't say. I told Wayne what I was doing, and then he called me up about 2 weeks later and says, we got a new class called Demo Class.
Because I remember having conversations with Wayne. I'm not sure if he's watching, but if Wayne's watching, I pleaded with him to let's have a class where you just use the SPL score with the bonus points. And he swore up and down, nope, we need to have the RTA. We need to have the RTA. So when I saw the demo class, I was there was a little grin inside of me that never stopped.
So I will tell you, I've been telling Wayne for a few years, Wayne, just go in and look. Everybody's got an 88 for the RTA number because I don't do it. You know? So,
well, the RTA is fun.
Well, no, so it's fun to you.
A lot of people.
I do this. I'm a showman, right? So my job at the show is to put on a show for people to see, and there's not much of a show for RTA unless you're a geek like you, me, maybe Ray, and a couple. Dude, you see how that peak right there? Yeah, if he just does this, he can bring that up a little bit. There's not a lot of people in the world that see that.
But I saw it when I was wanting that demo class, just the SPL plus the bonus.
Mm-hmm.
I saw those people going, I just want to do the SPL.
Yes. And that was common, right?
Yes, yes.
So since I do the most shows, I believe in anybody in the world, on an annual basis, I end up testing these classes as we're developing them. So the guys in California, shoot, we were doing a class called Street Beat back in 2002, 2001, that
Yeah.
later developed into Base Race. I mean, it was very, very similar to Street Beat, and then USAC. It's actually almost identical to USAC's Street Beat class, but it was head to head. So we put
Yeah.
people 1,200 watts, 212s. That was a class. Play music for 30 seconds, and average score. Whoever had the highest average score won.
You
Um,
know, you know what would be really cool, if I'm not sure if Wayne's watching, or if Wayne, if you're watching now, what would be really cool with this RTA, would be to get the cabin gain of your vehicle using this software by having a predetermined, box that's outside the vehicle, tested with the sensor right here,
mhm.
put it in the vehicle, have a screen capture or a data capture on the program, put it in the vehicle. It'll extrapolate the cabin gain, gives the person with the Magnum something to aim for.
That's some high level stuff there. But
That's
there's people out there
that
that would understand it.
that is the next step, I think, for his RTA. And if anyone knows how to figure out how to do that, that would be Wayne. And I'll show you one thing that I use.
So, while there he goes. He made it back.
Right
Yep.
here.
1 cubic foot.
No, actually, it's I believe it is 0.4, but it's only a 6-inch B&W. This driver I found measured the flattest in this enclosure.
Okay.
But literally, if I put this, and I've had this for probably 20 years, if I put this in any vehicle, and if I don't fry the speaker in it, whatever it peaks at, I've got it set up so it is the vehicle's peak. So
That's pretty good.
yeah,
I-
and so
Go ahead.
sorry, with most, I don't think this driver is made anymore. It's my last one. But when you put this in front of your RTA sensor, right in front of it, you're going to get the response off of this thing. When you put it in the vehicle and you put the RTA in, or the sensor, you can use the sensor too if it's loud enough, pull off of each note and their score. You take one score minus the other, gives you cabin gains. So, and the RTA can easily do that, I'm sure.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I was gonna say. So, I'm not that technical because I don't have time for that stuff anymore.
yeah.
So
So
what
basically, what he's saying is, for all the listeners that aren't watching, you have a sealed box that has a
Oh, yes.
subwoofer that plays very linear, that plays all of the notes relatively equal to each other, from 20 to 80 hertz, for example. You measure that outside the vehicle. Yeah, the Q of 0.7. You take that same, woofer, put it inside the vehicle, redo the exact same test from 20 to 80, for example, and then it'll give you a particular peak. And so that peak should, in theory, as long as everything is accurate outside the vehicle as it is inside the vehicle, that'll tell you what the gain is, or what the cabin gain is, and it'll also tell you what the peak frequency should be.
Yeah. So
Yep.
so for me, because I did quarter wave theory so long and I've judged so many cars, I can essentially look in a car, see where the subwoofer is, see where the port is, and I can usually get within 2 or 3 hertz of what the peak is on that vehicle based on the quarter wave theory.
Yes.
It's
Years and years of experience.
That's right. And I
But
mean, go ahead.
But for those guys who don't have 20 plus years to fall back on and can't look at a car like
Mhm.
we can and go, that car is going to peak somewhere 49, 50,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
somebody who's just getting into it is overwhelmed, that's one way they can do it. They do a reading with a linear box, like Ray was saying, 0.7, a Q of 0.7. You don't have to have a $300 mid in it. You just pick anything really that plays flat. You can get yourself a studio monitor for all that matters and use that.
No.
So
Yeah. You guys will be for the people watching right now, I am introducing a brand new thing to my DB drag competitions. So you guys are hearing about this for the first time. There's only one other competitor I told about it, and it's because he's already been involved in it once. So what I am doing now is people find it amusing that I can jump in any car and base race it. Never seen the car, never done anything. As a matter of fact, one year at World Finals, we were in Oklahoma, and somebody said the mics are screwed up. I said, "Give me your thing." Okay, when this should start, what should your number be up there? And he goes, "You should be a 148.9." I go, "Okay." So let me see. Okay, start it up when you're ready. Bam, he starts it. I hit the button, 148.7. I missed it by 1/10 of a dB of what he said, and I nailed a perfect 149.9 with the guy's car. And he was telling me how the mics were all messed up. There's no way anybody can do base race with this. So at my shows, I help competitors out. We're going to try this the next few shows. And what I'm going to do is whoever wins your base race class, you can pay $10, and we're calling it Beat the Boss. So whoever they beat in the final run of their base race class, I will ask to borrow their vehicle, and I will use that vehicle, and I will beat them in base race. So beat the boss, and if you beat me, you get $20. Pay
that's
10
what Ray.
bucks. The Ray should do that.
Yeah.
I will tell you. So Dave Bradshaw and I did that at the last show because it was his birthday. So I wanted to. Hey, I'm going to make it more competitive for you. I went 129.9 3 times in a row. The fourth time, I was trying to read off. I mean, you guys know, so I do my little auctioneer thing, right? I'm all 129.9, 129.5, 129.6, 129.6, 129.7. So I'm going back and forth with my numbers, and it was too hard to go back and forth with my numbers, watch the bass knob, and pay attention to mine, and I busted out with 2 seconds left.
Multitasking.
It was a little too much multitasking. So next time, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to base race and do my 29.9 all day long. So, but if anybody wins a class and whoever's in their class at the final run, if they want to go against me, we're going to call it Beat the Boss. And you pay $10, you win, you get 20 back. You lose, you lost your $10. So it's just a little something to have more fun with. It's uh, I get to play with the guys, right? So
I would lose because I haven't done that in such a long time.
I did it for the first time the last show, and I nailed 29.9 3 times in a row. That's the first time I've ever done it.
There's only 2 volume levels, 0 and 100.
Everything to the right. That's hilarious. So also, I'm going to pull this up real quick. I want you guys to see. So another thing we're going to do is we are going to start showing you what's the upcoming events. If you guys can see your screen right now, we have on May 1st coming up, we have Greenville, Michigan as a DB. These are only DB drag events because that's all I'm pulling up. We have a 3X on the 8th, which is in Newport, Tennessee. We have an event in Ukraine and Utah on the 8th. Then we have Netherlands on the 9th. One show that's missing from there is Friday, May 7th. Celise is currently making the flyers. We will be at Jay's Alarms down in Fresno. I will have him on the show next week. I didn't put that on the outro, but he will be on here to talk about his event. We're going to have Friday night shows in Fresno, and then we're going to have Saturday night shows up in Sacramento with Brian Nyman, and we're going to have Saturday night shows in Reno at Baldini's. So that's pretty much what we got set up. That's 3 events for the next 4 months. Friday night, Saturday night, and a Saturday night for every month. So right now we're looking at least 12 events. I have 2 more on the books that we're working towards. So you guys will see more and more shows pop up. Ray, what do you got coming up? Anything?
Well, my first show that I have planned is is May 23rd. It's a Sunday of in Canada we have a long weekend called Victoria Day Long Weekend. I'm partnering up with a group called man, why can't I never I can't think these days. Anyways,
Well, you are old.
Anyways, we're doing it at a Casserole Raceway. Currently, right now, I mean, we have all kinds of health restrictions and stuff like that with COVID, and having right now we're only allowed to have 10 people in an outdoor gathering. We have a special authorization from Alberta Health Services to have this particular event. It's at a raceway. Space is actually quite large. It's like 15 or 20 acres or something like that. So there'll be a ton of space so we can all kind of maintain our social distancing. But that'll be the first show of the season. That's Sunday, May 23rd. We should have probably 12 shows this year, maybe a little more than that. I have a lot of interest, a lot of people calling in and inquiring about events. Don just got in a brand new Magnum. I mean, he's definitely has all the gear, and he's definitely more than capable of running shows and stuff like that. I know he's got a lot of obligations with family and work, but what's in a day?
You don't realize I worked that day.
All right.
Maybe if I went to the higher ups and said there's a show and
just turn off the water for everybody. You're good.
Yeah, just turned it off and just closed down for the day.
Hey, so also Ray, you want to plug your shop real quick?
Yeah, it's just, I mean, I think you guys have been plugging it all the entire time. I mean, I am Ray Choy. I'm the owner of FX Audio, car audio shop in Western Canada. We support all formats of competition, mostly DB drag racing, because that's what we love and what we do. The car scene in general is absolutely fantastic. I tell everybody that as a totality, everybody gains if car audio scene is growing, whether it be Iasca, Mecca. In fact, I had the guys here. I believe we do not have Mecca at all, and there's two guys that moved here from Trinidad and they live in Alberta now, and I was in conversation with them, and they're going to partner up with us and have Mecca events at the exact same time we have our DB drag racing events. I've been reaching out to the Iasca people so that we could try to have Mecca, Iasca, and DB drag racing all in the same weekend, or all at the same time would be ideal, especially if we have enough space. Just because it's a totality, if the entire industry is growing, we're all going to do better. We're all going to grow together. So
with that,
and it also we need it to be generational, right? So please bring
absolutely.
your family and friends to these events.
Correct.
And let them see what we do, because when people see your passion for something, they get the passion. It's infectious. It absolutely is. And when you have a passion for something, someone will feed off of your passion, and getting more people involved with this just makes us better for our industry and the events. I mean, my events went from, when I first started, I had 5 or 6 entries. My last event, I was down a little bit, and we had 50 entries. So
that's pretty good.
Yeah. So my average event's in the 55, 58 entries right now for a 1X. So, please bring these people along, share with people. Don, what do you got to promote, sir?
Well, with that said, I don't really sell anything. I just love going to shows. But with that, just to add to the what Ray was saying, support those dealers who are supporting the competitions that we love.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, like Don says, I mean, the money has to come from somewhere. If a shop is hosting the event, they have overhead costs of doing it, the trophies, the judges, the event space, the staff to run the event. They're not working on jobs that are coming through the door and stuff like that. They're focusing on the competitors and making sure that you guys have a good time and stuff like that. So, I mean, if anything that we can take away from what Don says is that, maybe spend $50 extra on something from the store rather than ordering it online, because those guys that are doing all their stuff online, they're not giving back to the community. They're not hosting an event for you. They're not, I mean, at the end of the day, sure, you save $50, but if that's make it or break it over a period of time for a particular store, that store's going to go away. You're not going to have anywhere to go have your events.
Yep. And like with, you know, I try to give Ray as much money as I can afford, but I don't get all my stuff from one location for myself. But anyone that I do get from, they support competitions. They support the industry that we compete in, and we love to compete in. DB Drag, Ayahuasca, whatever it may be. I support those people. Yeah. And recently, I just started Team DB, and that one's a really small team, but those are the vehicles that I personally helped with, touched, worked with them, and we're going to try to get our whole mandate with this team is not just to say, okay, if you live somewhere where and you want to say you're in Florida and you want to be part of the team, that's not the team we are. We're a local team where we basically are going to get together. We're going to try to bring one person in every year and have them a permanent competitor. So that's, for me, that's my personal goal. So it's basically a team that I'm going to slowly grow over the years. We have roughly 7 members, but it's going to be over the next few years, it's going to be a very impressive 7 members.
Well, I am very sorry we ran so long. We went an hour and a half this time. Normally, I only go right at an hour. But
oh, yeah.
I think the information was great that we were sharing. And honestly, I think it needed the time to fit in with what we were doing. Next week on Monday, back here again, we are going to have Marissa O'Brien. Some of you guys may have known her as Marissa Copeland. If you guys watched Lucky's show, she was the one who got engaged at the same time as Gary Killian to Thomas O'Brien. They live up in Wyoming, out in the middle of nowhere. Something Rock, Little Rock, or Prairie, I don't know, some rock out in Wyoming. And so they live up in Wyoming. She is, I believe, the most downloaded hair trick person, lady. They even made some commercials, and she was getting, things saying, "Hey,
hair trick."
Oh yeah.
Isn't that Bass Girls?
That's Bass Girls thing, but Marissa's well known for it. She was out at Slamology, and there you go. And she was also at Autorama and some of the big events, and she's just well known. She had a car. And then we're also going to have Erin Schlid. Is that how you say her last name?
Something like that.
I'm
not good with pronunciation.
Yeah.
Oh,
Shield. There you go. So we're gonna have Erin and Marissa on here next week. Just talk about how they enjoy the industry and what it's done for them and where they're at with it. So once again, I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you if you stuck around for the whole thing. Remember, you can download this podcast on iTunes and iHeartRadio. If you do, or also on Facebook and YouTube, please smash the like button on this as often as you can. Once you smash the like button, share it with as many friends as you can. Let's try and grow this. I want everybody to see our passion. Like I said, we want to share the passion with everybody. So please tune in next week. We're growing. We're getting more people on here. We're getting better information. We're getting more. We're going to try to stay a little more technical, but it's all about learning. And like I said, you guys, thank you for tuning in again. Thank you to my guests, Don Hebig and Ray Choy, for being part of this. And we are out. See you next week.